Howdy, everybody. My name is J.R. Sparrow. And there comes a point in life when you have desires. And when you have desires, these desires turn into hobbies. They turn into more than hobbies. They become a labor of love. And a labor of love becomes something that's very justified and meaningful. So today I have Tod with me. And Tod has a journey, he has a story, he has the mode and means to help you move along in life. And we're going to go back to his humble beginnings, and then we're going to move along like we normally do with every other show. So let me just hand it over to Tod. And here is the number one question, the most nostalgic thing that goes on the show. We ask first, who are you, Tod? And Tod, do me a favor, because you know that I was going to crunch up your last name, and you already told me it 3 times.
All
Please
right.
introduce yourself to everybody and let us know where you're from and why you are here today.
Sure. My name's Tod Creneti. I live in
Creneti.
Creneti. There you go. I live in Parrish, Florida, which is not far from Bradenton and Sarasota on the Gulf Coast. And I'm originally from the Washington metropolitan area. Grew up in Virginia.
Okay, okay. And growing up in Virginia, you got some ties that are similar to me.
Very
Uh,
much so.
so I do this for all of my Virginians. If you lived in the 804-434-540-276, anywhere in those area codes, and we'll give the 757 a little respect in 804. But if you lived anywhere in Virginia, I just named pretty much every area code. And shout out to those people in Maryland that are only in one county that I respect, Prince George. And
Mm.
then outside of that, we'll just leave it alone there. Now, can you share with us how your journey began on these athletic fields and what inspired you to transition from sports coaching to becoming a monster inside the business world?
So interesting, right? I grew up as a coach's kid and had no idea at that point in my life how influential that would be. My dad, Frank Creneti, was a longtime high school coach, head coach, and athletic administrator. So I'm the kind of kid who grew up on sidelines going to practice. Friday nights were the biggest night of the week in my family growing up in the fall because going to football games, right? In a strong high school program, that's a big deal. And so I tell people all the time that growing up as a coach's kid, I had no shot at a real job. I was going to be a coach because I was drawn to everything I saw that my father was doing. And he was a relationship builder, very connected to his players. And that was very attractive to me. So I played for a guy named Bob Hardage at Annandale High School, who's a legend. His assistant, Dick Adams, carried that program forward for a long time too. So played for a lot of great people and had the influence of my father, was a quarterback in high school, played quarterback at Gettysburg College for 4 years for Barry Streeter, just really great experiences along the way. But I had this desire at every turn to stay connected to the game. And so as soon as I knew I couldn't play anymore, and I knew that pretty early on that that was coming to an end, I wanted to coach because I wanted to impact the lives of other people the way that my coaches had impacted me. And they made significant differences in my life and they helped shape me along the way. And that thread pulls all the way through to the work that I'm doing today. While I'm no longer on the sideline, I'm still out there trying to help other people accomplish the goals and dreams that they have and be the best they can be.
Okay, and I like that answer. And I like that lineage from father to son,
Sure.
a coaching tree. And then from
Yeah.
you, I know your assistant coaches have branched off. And that's something that people don't get into a lot. Because you have players that go play and then they become coaches. So your
Mhm.
coaching tree, by the time you're done, you're going to be the next Bill Walsh. And and that that seriously does happen. So I do want to just go off to a side because this is a second question, like, or a side question. How do you feel about knowing that you are part of a coaching tree and you're having your own coaching tree? How does that feel?
I think number one, it's great to have coaches that I am proud to have played for, who I know positively impacted my life. Let's start there. So those are my roots, and it's great to be somebody who comes with a great root system, and that is through the work and effort of other people. And so being able to recognize that I am who I am because of the people that were around me, that's a good place to be grounded. When I think about the kids that I've coached that have gone on to become coaches, I don't know that there's much that makes me prouder than that. I love keeping up with those guys. I love Xing and Owen with those guys, but I also love, hearing about their families and seeing the kind of men they're becoming and how coaching is shaping their lives like it shaped mine.
Okay. Now, there's challenges when building championship teams because me and you had a quick conversation about winning, and we know what it's like to win on the elite level. We know how
Hmm.
to win on each level.
Right.
How did these experiences affect and still go with you every day in your coaching philosophy? How do these challenges of building a championship team and all those experiences, how did that shape your coaching philosophy?
That's a great question. And it's interesting that you sort of led off with how does the winning help shape my philosophy? I think one of the things that I would say right away is you learn a whole lot more when you're losing.
Okay.
When things aren't going right, you have to constantly be digging in and saying, okay, well, how do we do this better? How can I be more effective? How can I make the most of the people that I have here, this combination of personalities and talent, and how do we maximize this? And at the same time, you're trying to impact that with scheme. And the thing that I really felt like I've learned along the way is championship organizations, whether they're on the field, you're talking about an orchestra, you're talking about a business, right? Any of those things. They're at their best when they have strong relationships at the center, when there's clear communication, where there's respect for one another, and when everybody understands that they play a part and not necessarily a starring role. And when people are willing to commit to something bigger than themselves, and that's something that gets said a lot, you see walls fall down, you see relationships start to strengthen. And that's when the championship level really starts to rear its head. And then really feeding that energy is about all the things you do off the field to make sure that when people go on the field or into a meeting, that they're there for one another. And that creates the championship effect.
Okay, and I like that. That right there just set it off. I appreciate that. Now, let's move over into the business coaching form. So the lessons you learned there, you're moving those over from coaching sports to improving performance and culture in the workplace. Tell me a little bit about how you've been doing that.
Well, I had an opportunity to sort of step back from being a teacher and a coach, which I had been for 23 years at the time. I've coached the college level, coached the high school level, been a head coach. But I had a chance to step back from that, and I had to figure out how I was going to feed my family. Right, I was going to build something full time out of that. And initially, I thought it would be primarily speaking until I met a couple people that I knew who were building businesses, who were struggling with leadership teams, who really just wanted somebody to come in and coach the leaders and help the leaders perform at a higher level. And the things that I learned quickly in those situations was there's not a lot of difference between trying to be successful on the field, trying to be successful in business or in a nonprofit or in building a family, whatever it might be, that we're looking for the same sort of factors. And again, we want to focus on real, strong, authentic, meaningful relationships that cause people to bring their best every day and be loyal. So if somebody asked me, hey, what are the things you want in a player? A lot of people would start talking about talent, size, speed, all those things. I'm looking for somebody who gives me their best effort every day, somebody who's somebody I can count on, somebody I trust, and somebody who's committed to the success of others. Now, if that person happens to be big, strong, fast, and super talented, right, they have an opportunity to go play at a high level. But someday, sports ends for all of us as a competitor, and we have to decide what we're going to do, the lessons that we learned while we were on the field. So for me, I take those lessons from coaching athletes specifically, and I turn them into the same kind of approach I would want to use with somebody in a business. Are you selfless? Are you team oriented? Are you prepared to meet the needs of your teammates? And can that be a focus that elevates the performance of everybody else? And are you an effort person? Do you bring your best every day? And if you do, I don't care what we're doing, we got a shot at being successful.
And I like that. That right there was the gem inside this episode. So anybody that needs to go back, rewind that and listen to that. Now, one thing I need you to do for me, Todd, is please tell everybody where they can meet and greet you across the internet. That's our little shameless plug. That's something nostalgic on the show. And I always like to get that in the middle because me, you talked about how you want to be impactful and you are impactful. So that would be a very impactful thing you can do right now.
Sure. You can find me online at todcreneti.com. That's TODCRENETI.com. That's my webpage. It really was a webpage that was built a couple of years ago for speaking and for coaching, but it's a place where you can get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at coachcreneti.com and just at Facebook on my name, just Tod Creneti.
Now, when people transition into other fields, we have a wealth of knowledge, but we have to get a wealth of education too. So you decided to go into industrial and organizational psychology. Tell
Correct.
us a little bit about that and why you felt the need to do that, because you already have the organization, you got the accolades, you got the resume basically. What made you want to go do that?
It's a great question because I was coming out of the last 5 years. The last school that I coached for was St. Stephen's Episcopal School in Bradenton, Florida. And the last 5 years were pretty magical. In that time, we played in 4 state championship games. We won the middle two. A lot of great kids went on, are continuing to do a lot of great things. But at the end, I was sort of ready to step away. But what I realized along the way was I had moved in as a coach from somebody who would, as a young coach, was on fire to talk about, again, X's and O's, scheme, and all of those things, that I really wanted to focus on the human side and the people side. And I'll tell you transparently that, and this is not something we talk about in the world, especially among men, and that's the challenges that a lot of people face with mental health. My mental health had been something that had been a struggle for me coming up, affected me as a player, affected me as a young coach, and I'd really been committed to trying to repair some of those broken bridges or burn bridges on my own and through some counseling and what have you. But organizational and industrial psychology took this fascination that I had developed in psychology from all the years I spent trying to learn about my brain and why I responded to things the way that I did. And it let me take that psychology from a very personal place to this place of industrial and organizational, which is really just the psychology of the workplace or the psychology of units, organizations, teams, however you want to label that. And so it really built this very clear path for me from the work I'd done individually, understanding my own psychology and makeup, beginning to sort of weave some of those things through as I worked with my players, and then understanding, hey, we can positively impact units no matter where those units are, no matter what their focus is. And so the industrial and organizational psychology was really an opportunity to sort of recharge my battery and also come away with some background and some training that would prepare me to be effective in corporate settings.
Okay, and I like that. So people definitely take that one in there now. Whew. Servant leadership is a significant part of your coaching prowess in
Yes.
your in there. How do you help leaders get their operations in line with this concept in their daily interactions and their decision making processes?
Okay, so one of the things I believe really strongly on the leadership front, and there are a million leadership speakers, trainers, writers, whatever out there. One of the things that people who aspire to be leaders maybe don't understand is oftentimes people aspire to be in charge, not to lead. And the illustration I always use for in charge is, think of a family of 4 kids, and the first time that the parents go out on a date and they leave the oldest kid in charge, right? There, that kid can't wait to have the authority to tell everybody else what to do, what to eat, when to go to bed, what they can and can't do. That's what we love about being in charge. People love to be able to tell other people what to do and not be questioned in return. Leaders are really, or should be, in my way of thinking, in a world where we're making the people around us better, right? And so that oldest sibling isn't interested in making the younger 3 siblings better. They're interested in telling them what to do and getting that sort of response that they want, right? So what I believe about servant leadership is leaders really should be called to pour into the people that they lead. I think we oftentimes fall in love with that seat at the head table, that title of president, whatever it might be, and those things really don't mean anything if the people that are following us, the people that we're leading, if they don't know that we love them, that we'll sacrifice for them, that will help develop them, that will be there for them when they struggle. And so servant leadership is about meeting the needs of the people that follow us in such a significant way that they're giving the best that they have at every turn. And it really builds this remarkable upward spiral where I'm giving them what they need. And in turn, they want to give each other what they need. In turn, I'm getting what I need. And we're an organization at that point that's not hurting because we're lonely and disconnected. We're an organization that's thriving because we're very connected and we believe in the best of each other.
So the intimacy inside of this organization makes a stronger community, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we often think that we need to be different people outside of the workplace and in the workplace. And there are some places where you can make that point. But when we're being our true selves, we're being the best we can be. If I'm committed to loving the person on my right and the person on my left more than I love myself because I want all of us to succeed, and those people are doing the same thing, again, we have everything that we need to be great. We just have to trust each other enough to be vulnerable and live that way.
Okay, okay. Now, you're a motivator, and a motivator um, has to do one thing that a lot of people don't really think about as you being a motivator. You've got to deal with adversity. And the
Hmm.
adversity that you got to deal with as a motivator, and I've seen this because I do this. We do it naturally because you're an athlete and I'm an athlete, and we know this.
Right.
We're going to be good in our skin, but the people beside us, and it doesn't matter if it's a group sport or individual team sport, like we talked about wrestling earlier. Um, how do you motivate while handling adversity? That's something that doesn't get asked a lot because this is what people say. I overcome adversity by doing this, but I'm not. They never tell the side of the story while they're handling that, how they motivate the other ones around them to help with some of the adversity.
Right. So fascinating. Adversity to me is not possible. To me, in my opinion, it's worth what you paid for it. Adversity is the greatest teacher that has ever existed. Right? We find ourselves in a situation where we're not sure what to do, where we feel overwhelmed, where we feel like we don't have the tools that it takes to get through it. We don't have a roadmap. And yet, every day we get up with the idea of being a little better, making a little bit of progress. And the next thing you know, we're on the other side of that adversity. And too often, people see adversity as the enemy and they want to combat adversity. I think we need to embrace it. We need to lean into it. We need to listen to what adversity is whispering in our ear and teaching us about where we can be stronger, not where we're weak. And I think when we avoid adversity, we avoid these incredible opportunities to learn and to get better. And so when you have organizations that are struggling and you shield them from adversity because you don't want things to get worse, I believe we're missing a doorway to get better. And I do believe that, if you want to achieve excellence, then you have to embrace adversity. And it's
Okay,
really that simple.
I like that. Now, the thing about helping people, um, the mirror doesn't always fall back on us. We don't, talk about the self care. Now, normally I would ask you about that, but you were pretty motivated and you talked about how you take care of yourself. So we're going to flip the script on this and we're going to do something different. Organizational care,
Mm,
industrial care.
right.
You have a mode and mean to motivate everyone. And the role in leadership that I was always taught, and this is from the corporate standpoint, was when we are with our colleagues, we're not going to call
Mhm.
them any subordinates or nothing like that.
Sure.
When I
Teammates,
take,
right?
yeah, teammates, when I take a step forward, they take a step forward with me. When I look to the left, they look to the left. When I look to the right, they look to the right. When I take a step back, that's for reflection. When I take two steps forward, that is to involve myself in things that will be the adversity and the trials and tribulations that they don't need to know about at that moment, but we will all embrace.
Hmm.
So, how do you take time to teach this in leadership? How do you break that simple format down for people to understand? Because a lot of people, when I do it, and we have to do it in different little motivation groups, in management, a lot of people don't understand the concept that even though you are a leader,
Hmm.
you go forward sometimes and delegation brings the rest with you, which I understand that. But sometimes it's not about the delegation, it's actually about the human experience which you were helping people with. Like how do you motivate the people that are behind you to come forward with you and stay in that straight linear expression? How do you do that?
That's a great question. And it's not one I've been asked very often. I think again, one of the places where we are challenged as leaders, and I like to think of myself as somebody who was always excited about the opportunity to be involved in a turnaround. And there are certainly people in the corporate world, on the venture capital side, who want to go into failing businesses and turn them into something great. And there are coaches out there who've made a career out of taking struggling teams and turning them into winners. And so when you have this plan, you have this process that you've been able to execute over time that's yielded success, there's a tendency to want to lean on that template and apply it to every situation that we're in. And I would make the case that that ultimately is a plan for failure because at some point the template doesn't fit, right? The process doesn't click. And so what I really believe is that the place where leaders really need to be outstanding is as listeners. We need to go into situations and be listening to our teammates, our colleagues, the people that we work with, and we need to understand their stories. Now, if we understand each individual along the way, we're able to motivate them, not using some grandiose plan that we want everybody to embrace, but by giving them pieces along the way that speak to who they are, what they believe, and what they hope to accomplish. And so, again, this falls back on this notion that the better we know one another, the more connected we are, the more successful we can be as a team. But leaders who are often great speakers and great at saying, this is where we're headed, probably can take a little more time to be listeners, to make sure that everybody is coming along with us, everybody feels engaged. And then, as successes are happening, even little ones along the way, that we're spreading the light and we're making sure that the people who are a part of this process are being celebrated as well, not just seeing all that celebration pointed at us ourselves who are the leader in that moment.
And right there, I'm going to tell you that's a diamond in this episode right there. Now, we got to pay homage to someone because someone molded you. Well, two people molded you, a mother and a father. But
Sure.
let's go to your father real quick. Um, what is the most sound advice that he ever gave you in coaching? And it's the reason I'm doing this, so you'll catch it in a second. I said coaching first.
Yeah. The most sound advice that he gave me in coaching was when I was on the line between staying in college and moving to high school. He said to me, if you want your coaching career to be about you and your advancement and people knowing who you are, stay in college, build it, be seen, and there'll be a platform. But if you want to be about the molding of young people, and if you want to be about the service of other people, high school is where you want to be. And I never coached in college again after that. Had some opportunities along the way, they just didn't fit. And it really made sense to me because I was more drawn to elevating other people than to, making myself the product, if you will.
All right, now let's move on to life. He's giving you probably a wealth of knowledge, your mother too, but what was the life lesson that he gave you?
My dad, it's funny. My dad is, 5'6", Italian, first generation. Um, and it's funny to see somebody that's that size, strike terror in the hearts of high school players of all sizes. But that's what it was like. And yet he would look at me and he would say, the way you really get to people who are trying to create problems for you is to be good to them. And he would say, you got to nice people to death. You just have to be good to them. You have to not take the bait, not get into fights, not get into these grudge matches, but instead just to consistently be good to people, give them the best that you have along the way. Having said that, I think the other thing I learned from both of my parents is that there is nothing to be lost in learning how to love people unconditionally. And when we have to put ourselves out there first, but when we do, yeah, there'll be times where that doesn't come back. There'll be times where colleagues or players or whomever might choose to act in a different way, and that hurts for a while. But to be known as somebody who's going to put themselves out there and love others unconditionally, the people that will be drawn to you will be far more in number. And then there's a richness to life when you lead with the ability to love others.
All right, now on to your mother.
Hmm.
Now, your mother, she sees you through everything.
Hmm.
Fathers love us, but the mothers see us through everything because we come from them. We come from DNA from our father, but our mother. So your mother took a time, probably let's just say in high school, and she sat you down. What was the advice that she gave you in high school? And if she gave
It's
you some advice, it's something strong. Go ahead.
No, no, absolutely. And it is strong. And it's funny. One of the things I love to do as an adult is cook. And part of that's because my mom was a phenomenal cook. And I would come home from practice or whatever, and she might be getting dinner ready. And we'd have these great, conversations in the kitchen while I'm either sitting and watching and learning or maybe helping out a little bit, probably more watching than helping as a teenage boy. Um, but the thing that my mom would say to me over and over again is, "Hey, we love you. We support you. We're behind you." And my mom also was very big into instilling faith into me. And she was the person who helped me, and it took a long time, grab onto this idea that I didn't have to force my way in the world, right? That I could trust that opportunities were going to come. And when I did, if I had worked hard along the way, that when those opportunities came my way, I'd be ready. And I was going to go out and change the world at 22 and storm my way to victory. My mom reminded me that she'd support me no matter what I did. She'd always be there. She always loved me. But that I could also be confident that when opportunities presented themselves, I'd be ready. And she was right.
All right, now the last one about your mom. Moms, the love from a mom, the love from a father are two totally different things. Me and you both know that.
Yes.
But we have to sit down with our mom about one serious thing. We can talk to our dad about this, but they always tell us, be kind of tough about this. But
Yeah.
how did your mom help you in your first real defeat? And that defeat can be anything, heartbreak, whatever. How did she help you in your first real defeat? Because when we have that first real defeat, and I'll tell you what happened to me, so you got a little time. This is
Sure.
what happened to me. I was out here in the world, and like you said, we had that takeover mentality, and I was wrestling pretty good. I ended up getting beat by a kid that didn't even place in his state.
Mm,
His technique was better. He was just a better athlete all over in that one instance. Now later on, I got my revenge a few years later,
there you
but
go.
that's eighth grade to a 12th grade year that I had to catch up to him. And
Sure.
he went on and he became a whole lot more successful from that time. And we never crossed paths until that end. And I got that win, and she was happy, and I went on with life, which it doesn't always happen like that. That's kind of fairy tale. But that was a defeat that haunted me for 4 years. So you let us know something that your mom helped you with. I mean, my mom just this was a simple thing she told me. She said, just get better.
Yeah. So one of the things that was interesting, I can remember that the thing that I would go to my mom about the most was I think there are times in our lives where we all feel like we're a little lost and we're not sure what we should be doing or where we should be focusing our energy. Things don't feel like they're clicking. There are times where we feel like we're broken, whatever it might be. And as men, it's often harder to talk about those things to the men in our life. And so, in particular, when I was feeling lost, I would talk to my mom about it. And I can even picture myself and the look on my face and what it felt like at that moment to feel like I had just lost my way. And she liked to remind me that we were never lost. We were right where we needed to be. And if we were feeling lost, it's because we weren't seeing the things we needed to see. She had an art teacher growing up. Both she and I loved to draw. And the art teacher would say to her, anybody can draw, not everybody can see. And so we take this idea that we should always be looking for the things around us that will inform how we live, how we perform, and what we create.
Okay, and I like that. Now, we're getting to the end of the show, and what I need you to do for this audience, and this is where you take the show away from me, and it becomes your show, Todd, for just this moment. I
Okay.
need you to give us the most amazing mission statement, and outside of that mission statement, after that, I need you to give us a promise inside that mission statement. And the reason I say this is because you have a strong background, and I'm gonna give you a quick testimony on yourself. You come from a great family, from what is accounted for. Not talking about the accolades on the wall, but you can just tell in your demeanor when I first started talking to you, the brilliance and how you speak and how you carry yourself. So I want to thank your mom and dad for that, and everyone in that lower part of Italy that probably framed your family's lineage. So
Mhm.
shout out to them. Next thing is we can always do perseverance, tenacity. We can do all that stuff that I normally do on the show, but let's just do this one thing: advocacy. You are an advocate, and being an advocate in this world is the hardest thing, because here's the thing: there's not always advocacy for yourself. And you learned along the ways how to deal with that. You took the embrace of, I have to deal with my mental health. I
Mhm.
have to deal with the social impacts, the psychological strain and gains that come along with being a human. And you said to yourself, I can work at this every day. It's always going to be a work in progress, but I can work at it. I
Mhm.
can't ever stop working at it, because the day that I stop working at it, I've decided that I'm putting myself in a bubble. And if I put myself
Sure.
in a bubble, it's isolation. So you do that very well. And I thank you for that. Coaching. Coaching is the most selfless thing that you can do in life. And you do it on multiple facets. So thank you for that.
I
Because
love it.
a lot of people, I've coached sports, soccer, wrestling, different things like that. And I've had success here and there. And I still help out in different things. But for you to continuously do it and to still spread the word, and then to not translate it, to transition it into business, but still keep the sports aspect to it. That is an amazing thing because some people lose their focus. Like you can still tell the war stories, but you still don't have that feeling anymore. And you
Right.
still have the feeling. You can see it in your face, see it in your eyes, and your eyebrows, and everything.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for that. There. So the end of this testimony is this: keep going forward, keep doing what you're doing, and motivating and dealing with adversity. You've got that down pack, so you can help the world with that because not everybody can handle things. Not everybody can put the weight on the world on their shoulders, and you do that very well. So I want to tell you
Thank
a huge thank you. When you look in the mirror in the morning before you do your nice little suave with your hair and everything,
you.
just remember that there were people behind you, there were people to the left, to the right of you that you've helped, and they're moving forward. So that linear expression, you keep it going every day in the world for people, and not a lot of people can do that because that's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of stuff that people will never see in a nutshell. I know it
Exactly.
personally, and you know it. So
Mhm.
now, give us that mission statement and leave us with that mission promise. So, audience, get ready. Here goes Tod.
So if you go back to that idea that we need to embrace adversity to achieve excellence, let's take it a step further and let's go to those places where we feel broken. Brokenness, we don't think of anything being good about brokenness, right? Broken bones, broken machines, broken cars, whatever it is, broken is a problem. And so we have this tendency to tell ourselves when we're not fitting into the world that we must be broken. And then we hear the term broken up, right? We have this idea that bands break up, that couples break up. And so even breaking up is not a good thing. But I want to challenge that. I think brokenness and confronting our own brokenness is a lot like confronting adversity. If we run from it, we'll be left with that broken feeling for time and time again. Instead, we need to look into what we believe is our brokenness, and we need to be broken up. And what I mean by broken up is we need to let that brokenness and the emotions and the experiences and the traumas that create that feeling elevate us. By embracing that moment of brokenness and facing it down, what we're able to do is draw these incredibly important life lessons and rise and do more and be greater. So we're not broken. We're just on the cusp of being broken up, which allows our brokenness to make us better, to make us more resilient, to make us more relevant in the world, and then to be able to engage other people and help them do the same thing. So that's the mission. And the mission promise is if we confront our own brokenness or what we perceive to be our own brokenness, there is strength for the future inside.
All right. And on that note, I am JR and he's Tod, and we are signing off.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.